Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to In-Depth Perceptions. I'm your host, Nathan Riva. Sorry, guys, it's been a while since I posted my last video, but been quite busy over here. But finally had an opportunity to make this video, and I'm really excited to talk about this interesting subject. Because a part of this whole channel is it's all encompassing. It's not just about uh, the banking system or conspiracies and how society is run by this global elite. It's more of an all-encompassing channel, and I think this video is going to show what I mean by that. And basically, I just like talking about things that I'm interested in, and I'm interested in a wide range of things. But the electric universe theory is something that has really made me look at the world with a different set of glasses on, have a different perception of things, have a different perception of the nature of reality itself. Because again, if you want to relate this back to the whole conspiracy, um, it does tie in really well, which is probably why I came across this in the first place. Actually, I know this is why I came across this in the first place, because it does tie into all the other research that I've done, and how we're basically fed a lie about ourselves, the true nature of who we are, the true nature of reality. We're basically fed that lie from cradle to grave for the most part, and it has been going on like that for quite some time. Obviously, the control of the education system is extremely important, and we do look and see our governments are basically running the education system, uh, who are funded by people with nefarious ideas and agendas for the mass population. I know that might be a little bit difficult for some people to grasp, but I guess that's where the basis of this research for me started, which was understanding why society is the way it is, and then uh, branching off into other realms like science, the nature of reality, things like that. But get back on point here. I really want to break down the mainstream scientific view of what the nature of reality is versus the electric universe um, perspective, because I guess you could say these are two competing theories, even though the mainstream gives no credit whatsoever to this. Really well put together scientific theory, as you'll see as I continue to um, break break it down and show you both sides and what we're actually looking at here. Because most people think of Einstein, they think of the Big Bang, they think of evolution, and they think of this as rock solid fact. Um, that's what we were spoon fed, and I can attest to that because I was one of those people. Um, you know, in the past, not that long ago, especially when it came to things like questioning modern day physics and science. You think these people are essentially geniuses, so you don't question them. I've read Stephen Hawking, Lawrence Krauss, all your mainstream scientist type people, and books on physics and quantum mechanics and things like this. And it does paint an interesting picture of reality, but unfortunately, um, I think definitely a compartmentalized view of reality, and one that doesn't connect many dots. And that's one of the biggest differences between Einstein's theory of general relativity and the electric universe theory. Um, one doesn't connect any dots, which is our current perception of reality, and the other one connects all sorts of dots and gives us a cosmology that's actually at its heart very simplistic and easy to understand. Whereas we look at what the proponents of the gravity-centric universe are propounding. There is a heavy reliance on complex mathematics that nobody can understand, and mathematics is not science. Remember that. Mathematics is not science. It is a tool human beings have, and it can be used for many different purposes. But depending on what you're putting into these equations, it depends a lot on what you're seeing. Their cause and effect has been removed. When looking at things, you'll see when we look at virtual particles and things like that, what science really confuses people with, and really goes against all intuition and common sense. Having virtual particles and virtual photons and the Big Bang, where things are being created out of nothing, which is pretty fundamental error in going about science. But it seems to be just completely disregarded. So I guess that'll be my introduction, and I'm gonna start breaking down different points of disagreement between the two theories. And at the end of the video, I'd like people in the comment section to let me know what they think, and think what actual view of reality holds more water to common sense and evidence. And I have no doubt by the end of this video that you will agree that the electric universe model, I don't care if it's right or wrong, I personally believe that it is, and at the end of the day, we all rely on our own belief systems to get by on this planet. But if you're going to have two theories compete against each other, which one holds much more merit? I hardly doubt anybody with an open mind could not see that the electric universe theory absolutely is pointed in the right direction. They are headed in the right direction towards truth and towards greater understanding of the universe and our place in it. And you'll see that the Einstein gravity-centric model and the way that we currently view the nature of reality is totally and absurdly false. So that's the introduction, and I'm going to go into the first topic that I'm going to talk about is gravity versus electromagnetism. And I want to talk about it in the context of mainstream science versus the electric universe perspective. Gravity, according to mainstream science, is, and thanks to Einstein, is basically the byproduct of warps and ripples in what they call space-time fabric. A heavy object placed in this space-time fabric displaces the fabric, and therefore these warps and ripples is what these heavy celestial objects follow in their orbital paths, as these warps and ripples. Okay, I used to believe that, used to think it was really cool and everything, but the problem with relying on gravity is this: it's very, 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 very weak. I can pick up this pen, I can pick up this glass of water, I can jump up pretty high in the air, I can send rockets and satellites into outer space or low Earth orbit. It's very, very weak, so it creates a lot of problems, and over the years in science, it has created a lot of problems. Which is when you look out into deep space and you look at spiral galaxies, you look at all these beautiful formations. It says, how can these formations take place and hold themselves together? Gravity is such a weak force, and our calculations don't add up. These spiral galaxies shouldn't be held together in this beautiful spiral. It should be dispersed. Nothing should be holding it together. Where's all the matter that should be there to so the gravitational effects could hold everything together? Oh, well, instead of rethinking the theory, they just mathematically made something up, and they call it dark matter. They can't see it. There's no evidence of it, but the mathematics make the original Einstein theory correct. It's like putting a patch over a leaking in a leaking ship or something. Like, oh, there's a problem. Oh, let's just cover that up. And you have dark, and the same thing with dark energy and black holes. You look, scientists and astronomers, astrophysicists look at uh, the center of galaxies and see that there's so much dense mass there and so much energy there. And they say, well, can't see it, so it's got to be a black hole. It can't be any other effect but gravity. Gravity's got to be the pulling and the sucking force that the black hole uses. And the dark energy that's pushing the universe in its so-called expansion state, which is responsible for the redshifting. It can get technical, but we don't need to get into that. So our cosmology of what we're seeing and what scientists are observing needs these patchworks like black holes and dark matter and dark energy to make the theory fit. If we just resorted to something that's been proposed for probably over 50 years or longer than that, 60 years, which is electromagnetism. This is like what Tesla was about, and where his research was taken. That there was something about electricity and magnetism that what has something to do with the substructure of reality. And it's interesting. It's very interesting to note that we've gone in completely the opposite direction. I don't believe that's a coincidence. I think we've been led astray purposely, and I find that science is so compartmentalized that people don't even realize that how their work relates to the bigger picture. But again, getting back to gravity and electromagnetism, let's put on a different pair of glasses and put on the electric universe perspective glasses, and let's say, okay, there's no black holes, there's no dark matter, there's no dark energy. What could give rise to these forces that, or this dense force that's being seen, or what matter is being witnessed at the center of galaxies? How are these spiral galaxies able to hold their formation? Why are we able to see this? Well, could there be another force out there? Well, yeah. How about the electromagnetic force, which is 10 to the 36 power stronger than the gravitational force? So that's like 10 with 36 zeros next to it. It's like billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of times stronger than the gravitational force. And again, electrical engineers, people that work with electricity, understand current flow, have been in part with the EU proponents and plasma physicists, and have constructed a really beautiful model at how everything's held together and connected through what are called Birkeland currents, discovered by a man named Christian Birkeland. It's what the solar wind, what we call the solar wind. It's electric current flow. It's charged particles, and radio astronomers can trace these out. And the more dense they are, they go into glow mode. So the more dense current flow there is, that's the stuff that we're able to actually see with our eye. But they're still there. There's still current flowing through the solar system. It's not sterile, where mainstream science likes to claim that the universe is electrically sterile. Everywhere you look, you see magnetic fields, and we like to postulate inner dynamos, but we know here on Earth that when you have an magnetic field, you have an electric current, and vice versa. So astronomers and people are looking up into the depths of the cosmos and seeing all these unbelievable things: spiral galaxy, huge cosmic jets of matter spanning thousands of galaxies, And they're so perplexed because the universe is supposedly electrically sterile, so they need more patchwork, and they need more dark matter, and they need more dark energy, and they need things that can only fit the theory. Because when you switch over to the electricity, things completely change perspectives, and I think it has large ramifications for future technologies and advanced civilizations, which is, I think, one of the reasons why this theory is definitely being suppressed and why people like Tesla's work has been ignored. Um, so again, the electromagnetic effects of what you're seeing, instead of using uh, dark matter, dark energy, or black holes, is you're getting current fed into each arm of the galaxy, and at the center of the galaxy is a highly dense uh, um, piece of matter, or called a plasmoid. It's just basically high density of current, and it it becomes unstable after a while. And this is what you see when uh, there's these massive jets spewing out along the axis of spiral galaxies and other galaxies. Is a plasma becoming unstable because of its potential has been reached, so it's got to discharge somehow. This is the effects that it seems like people are actually witnessing, not a black hole spewing out matter, which doesn't make really any sense, because black holes are supposed to suck in all matter, but they have to make up things like the event horizon, all sorts of like mathematical patchwork things to cover up the holes in their theory. When if you just look at it from common sense and realize, oh my God, yeah, look at some of these pictures uh, from deep space, and you tell me that's not an electrical current flowing through there. Tell me that's where that magnetic field is being generated. It's how these beautiful spiral armed galaxies are able to hold their form. It's electricity. It's magnetism. It's everywhere. It's common sense. But for, again, compartmentalized mainstream science is really vehemently defending their position. And yes, there is this inertia of previously held beliefs, but I really do think at the core of the scientific like foundations, they know that the universe is more operated on an electrical basis than a gravitational one, and they know that the implications of that are far-reaching. That's a personal opinion of mine. Um, but let's get on to the second uh, point of disagreement that you could say that the mainstream has with the electric universe, and which is, what is the sun? Well, according to mainstream science, it's a ball of gas that's consuming itself, and it's going to swell up and explode, or who knows what its fate is going to have, because who can predict the future in a few billion years? Um, but essentially, that the sun is a self-gravitating thermonuclear bomb consuming its own hydrogen and helium, and then eventually it's going to run out of fuel. That is the mainstream scientific view. When you look at the sun, you don't even see anything of the sorts. But again, this theory is still propounded and still taught to people as fact. So, is the sun a nuclear bomb consuming its own fuel and hydrogen and helium, or is it a cathode in an electrical circuit? Well, I think the cathode idea is a very intriguing one. So I'd like to explore it a little bit more. So that the idea that the sun isn't this just giant ball of gas consuming itself, but it's actually a rocky body that it's being fed from the outside. The current is flowing in, and it's causing an electrical reaction uh, and causing a dense plasma sheath of electrical current that flows over it. And This is what gives off radiation, and this plasma sheath does uh, get extremely hot. It's an electrical phenomenon, and this is where people do see the nuclear reactions, but they go on at the photosphere. Um, when you look at the sun and you see that it's got dark, cool spots uh, that we call sunspots, you would think if the sun has a self-consuming, self-gravitating thermonuclear bomb that is radiating from in to out, you wouldn't be able to peer deeper past the photosphere and see that it's cooler inside. But again, there's all of these mathematical games that they play and theories that they devise using convection to get around the obvious that if this was radiating from the very center, it is the hottest at the very center and radiating outwards like a thermonuclear bomb would, that you wouldn't have sunspots. Sunspots fly right in the face, and people have been observing the sun, like Ralph Jurgens have said, and this is since like the 60s, that every single observation of the sun goes completely contrary to what the mainstream theory proposes about the sun. It's actually mind blowing. So the sun is not a thermonuclear self-gravitating bomb. It's a plasma sheath, a cathode in an electrical circuit. So we're getting away from, again, this is where I really like the idea of where the electric universe is going. We're getting away from what Einstein and what the last, let's say, century of mainstream cosmologists and physicists have been saying, which is like the universe is somehow disconnected and everything is kind of its own island and floating around in space. The electric universe and understanding Birkeland currents and these huge cosmic currents that flow through space, you start to see as everything's becoming reconnected, which I know as humans, most people do. They do feel this connection to everything in the planet and everything on it. Whether we are conscious of it or not, we inherently and intuitively know that there is this deep connection between things. And again, this theory is starting to shed light on, wait a second, maybe things are connected. Even though we're looking at things from a huge macroscopic point of view, like whole cosmos. But as we know, things from the bottom look the same from the top, if you know what I mean, as above, as below, as the saying goes. Um, there's repeated patterns that we see, and these Birkeland currents, which actually the electrical energy flow, they flow in twisted pairs, the double helix. This is exactly how we run electrical cable here on Earth. That's the way current flows. It flows in this double helix pattern. The more dense the current is, it goes into glow mode. The less dense the current is, you're not going to see it. You're not going to be able to see it, but radio astronomers, like I said before, are able to trace these cosmic power lines, so to speak, out. So we have this wonderful reconnection, I find, using electricity and understanding cosmic currents. And we see that with those cosmic currents and with those huge electrical energies, you get these magnetic fields. It stabilizes things. It has things that it can create these spiral armed galaxies and these beautiful structures that we see. So those are my first 2 points that I wanted to go over: the gravity versus electromagnetism, and the sun versus the sun nuclear bomb hypothesis versus the sun as the cathode in this big plasma sheath in this electrical current. Just maybe stop the video now and think to yourself, what makes more sense? What is heading in the right direction? I'm going to have this episode is going to be loaded with show notes because it's very, very detailed. So I'm just brushing the surface on some of these topics and some of these areas of disagreement and some of these things that we can look at to actually change our perceptions a little bit. But I don't want to get people lost in too much detail because the detail can get heavy. But the essence of the electric universe theory is simple. Um, it's very simple. Electric current plays a role in outer space. It plays a massive role in planetary happenings. Does not Is not sterile as mainstream would have it. It has a massive role in everything, especially planet formation and other things, as we'll get into as I keep going down the list. Okay, so the third and fourth topics I want to talk about, I really want to kind of tie together because they go so well together and it sheds so much light on a wide variety of issues, especially questions that have plagued humanity for long periods of time. Things that we still don't fully understand, even though when you read a mainstream science textbook about the history of the solar system, the history of the planet, the history of the human species, it's a pretty good bedtime story and pretty. It's a clockwork universe. Nothing really has happened. The universe exploded into existence from nothing. 13.8 billion years ago. The Earth formed around 4 billion years ago, and then random processes of natural selection and evolution gave rise to humans, and we've gone from a particularly more stupid state to a more smart state, I guess you could say, or is what is the ideas or what's given off by this way of looking at things. And again, the more you delve into this, the farther from the truth all that nonsense is. Um, I really like the electric universe proponents and how they take a humbled approach to this, and they flat out say, we don't know how old the Earth is, we don't know how old the universe is. All these things are pretty much unknowable. The best we can do is what the best we can do is what is to work with what we have and piece together the fragments of evidence we have and go to where the evidence leads us. So when you start looking into electric discharge cratering versus gravitational cratering, and you start following that evidence to where it goes into some pretty crazy places. One that you wouldn't really expect, which is the whole history of our human race and what we experienced in the past. Understanding electrical discharge and understanding electrical cratering really sheds light onto our our past as humans. There is this. I really like the lead researcher for the electric universe. He has a website called Holoscience, uh, used abbreviated from the word holistic, because the electric universe perspective and approach to cosmology is a holistic approach to things. It is completely the big picture. This is why there's so many people from so many different backgrounds and specialties that are coming together and converging to put this piece of science out into the public realm, and it's gaining steam more and more each year. And I've only been looking into this for the past 2-3 years, and even in the last 2-3 years, the incredible momentum that it's gained. Because when you start looking at the evidence and you actually look at it, it's undeniable. Like the electric discharge cratering, which is what I want to talk about. Right now, we have our theories which propose the planets went through a form of planetary bombardment which created all these craters. Okay, people drink that Kool-Aid, swallow it, and don't think much about it. Okay, kind of makes sense, but does it really? And does it actually stand up to the evidence? All these craters that we see on the moon, a lot of them are perfect. These beautiful, perfect circles with craters inside them and central peaks with inside those, and perfect all these craters right next to each other, and all these perfect circle craters are supposed to have been created by overhead direct impact, which the chances of that happening for every single one, especially during periods of chaotic bombardment, are ludicrous. So what other way? What other forces could cause cratering like that? Well, all you have to do is go to an electrical machining lab or manufacturer who electrically machine using plasma cutting torches what the effects uh, of them are. And they look exactly like the stuff that we see on the moon and on Mars and other rocky bodies throughout our solar system. It's really amazing. These twisted these twisted pairs can of high densely packed current can carve out enormous chunks of Earth, not just uh, the little craters that you see, but massive uh, channels and valleys like the Grand Canyon and like Valles Marineris on Mars. Look at a lightning strike on the ground and tell and then look at an overhead shot of Valles Marineris and of the Grand Canyon and tell me that they don't there's not some serious resemblances. You need the geologists still can't really explain the Grand Canyon, nor can they even attempt to explain um, the Martian Valles Marineris, which is it stretches a third away around the planet. It's way bigger than the Grand Canyon, deeper, wider. It's absolutely massive. It's this huge scar that goes right across the face, the whole surface, pretty much. What could have caused that? Well, according to mainstream science, only wind, water, erosion could cause that. So then you need to tack on billions and billions and billions of years for the removal of material on that scale to take place, and that doesn't make sense. So what is the next best option that we have? And it is, of course, the electrical force. But you have to view planets and asteroids and comets not as these isolated bodies with no influence, but as charged bodies of electrical potential moving through uh, space, moving through the ether, um, which is this dielectric medium. So if you have two bodies of different electrical potential and they do happen to come close to one another, what is going to happen? Well, they're going to exchange uh, electrical current. They're going to discharge. Their electrical potential is gonna change. So they're going to discharge in a certain way, and the effects of that. Well, can you imagine? Massive lightning bolt strikes, huge things that we could almost can't even imagine, but were witnessed and were talked about, and were talked about by the ancient Greeks, and was talked about in the Bible, and all these stories of myths and floods and fire raining from the sky, and all this collective memory of humanity, of the end of civilization, the end of time, and this fits the bill. And there's an incredible book by this man Immanuel Velikovsky called World in Collisions. He wrote this in the 70s, and he went around and studied all these different ancient civilizations and cultures, and the Bible, and different religious texts, and the Indians, the people from the Amazon, the Indians there, the North American Indians, the Aboriginals in Australia, all these ancient cultures and all these civilizations, and they're all saying the same thing. They all describe the same thing, these catastrophic events. And electrical discharge fits the bill, and the experiments that you can do in the laboratory to show electrical creating, to show how plasma behaves in different gases, um, how all these things work, and you can actually see it, and the light goes on. It makes total perfect sense. This is what people were witnessing, and again, this episode will be loaded with show notes and loaded with documentation, so you can go and peruse and scan through some of these things that I'm talking about. But the essential story that the electric universe has come up with was that, like, again, if you look at the Grand Canyon, you look at Mars, and you look at all the cratering on different celestial bodies, they are made through electrical discharge. They are machined marks through that have been created and formed by electrical discharge. All the experiments fit the bill. They fit with what we observe, and with what our ancestors talked about. Zeus is thunderbolt. You look at these statues, and you go research what Zeus's thunderbolt is shown to look like, and these ancient paintings of different thunderbolts and things, and you see that they resemble nothing like what we've seen, but plasma discharge experiments show exactly that this is exactly what a plasma discharge formation looks like. It looks like what Zeus is holding in a statue. And then there's a lot of technical reasons and detail to go into why those structures appear the way they do, and how the electric currents are able to flow and form those certain things. But again, that'll be something for you guys to go down and educate yourself on, because it is a lot of detailed information. But those two things that tie so closely together is understanding our history and seeing the evidence of electrical discharge on all these planets. And Mars is such a beautiful example, because you can see these pictures of Valles Marineris on Mars, and you can research what electrical discharge looks like in a laboratory and tell yourself and ask yourself what makes more sense. And it's funny, because the proponents of the EU, have a different cosmology and different human history, where Venus, has been referred to throughout all different civilizations as a comet, and Mars as this warrior type god. And if there was this cosmic battle going on overhead, where Venus passed numerous times and Mars passed numerous times close by, and all this electrical discharge was taking place, it makes sense why the ancient Indians in North America would call Mars Scarface. There is this massive scar across its face, but this indicates that the planets moved on different formations and came closer to Earth, and not everything's this clockwork solar system. And Immanuel Velikovsky really is a pioneer in essentially showing that all this took place, and we have to listen to our ancestors and listen to what people have written down in history, and not just chalk it up to myth or ignorance, which is what we do now. And our ancestors were trying to tell us something, and I really credit people like Immanuel Velikovsky and people like Dave Talbot, who have done the research, who have cross-referenced all these cultures, have put the pieces back together. And there's a man named Anthony Peratt, who's part of the electric universe community, who's a plasma physicist who wrote a book. This is what's funny, and how all these ideas converged. And from what I've gathered from listening to these people speak, is that Anthony Peratt, the plasma physicist, was working in Los Alamos, and I think he worked for DARPA, and he was working with plasma in laboratory experiments. And Dave Talbot had all these hieroglyphs and all these symbols still unable to piece together. And I'm going to be showing, you'll be able to see these in the video we'll be showing right now. But these hieroglyphs and things that people carved into, rock and cliff sides and painted, these are actually plasma discharges, and that he has seen these formations himself working with plasma in the laboratory. And then they started collaborating, and everything gains speed from there. And now they have the Thunderbolts project and this whole electric universe community. So it's really beautiful seeing ideas and different people coming together. and the reconnecting and seeing that there is this larger cosmology that interconnects everything, interconnects history, it interconnects who we are, it interconnects the cosmos, which is something which got disconnected again when Einstein postulated his speed of light, which is what I'm going to be getting into, on uh, the next topic that I want to kind of break down, which is speed of light connection versus uh, what they call non-locality in quantum mechanics, or instantaneous communication is what is basically happening, or what we perceive to be almost instantaneous communication. According to mainstream science, nothing can move faster than the speed of light. But light is just, again, electrical potential moving through a dielectric medium. It's moving through the ether. Um, its speed depends on what medium it's passing through. There is no ultimate there is no vacuum in space. That's why, like, another point to make about this video is to point out that either we live in an etherless universe or an ether filled universe, which I think we live in an ether filled one. It makes perfect sense. It's why the electric force rules so much, is because this medium that perpetuates all of the universe is dielectric in nature. It's got two poles. It's got a positive and it's got a negative. And it relates to the spiritual teachings, the yin and yang of everything. It's weird that it's not weird. It's beautiful and amazing that there is this substructure of reality that is dielectric and dualistic in nature, and there's lots of different reasons why that could be, lots of different spiritual teachings, but I just see how this is coming in total alignment with what I think people have known for a long time, and it's just putting things in more of a scientific perspective. And I think in the future, people are going to be able to really harness this knowledge for things like free energy and who knows what else. But getting back to the ether versus no ether, it's simple. I think that when you look at things from this perspective, a universe filled with a dielectric medium like an ether is what makes the most sense. The ether-filled universe making more sense, and get back to the question of, instantaneous communication or non-locality versus, Einstein's speed of light. And the problem with mainstream science, and the problem that they have, which is they can't marry quantum mechanics and general and special relativity, because the two are pretty much diametrically opposed. Because quantum mechanics has weird things that happen at a distance they call non-locality or instantaneous communication. So they need to postulate things like wormholes and all sorts of fancy mathematical window dressings to kind of get around what they're observing here in the quantum realm. Because with Einstein, it's disconnected. Things move slowly comparatively. The speed of light is really, really slow. But people who have, again, the evidence, what people are witnessing doesn't seem to fit with what is being spoon-fed to people, which is that there is this cosmic speed limit, and that it's a constant, and that speed of light doesn't change. But in reality, speed of light changes depending on what the medium is in. And people have actually gone around. This unbelievable, I think he's unbelievable, but Rupert Sheldrake, is one of these people scientists that have gone around and questioned these things about the speed of light constant. And, well, how do you know it's a constant? And has the speed of light actually changed over the years? And when you actually look into the thing, yeah, the speed of light has changed over the years, but, mainstream science just wants to keep it a constant. But when you keep the speed of light a constant, you completely disconnect everything. But when you're using the electromagnetic force, and that this substructure is there. It's intertwined. It's interwoven with everything. This dielectric substructure, and that instantaneous communication can happen because it is like, it's not what mainstream science would have you believe, where things are all moving on this slow transverse wave. It's the way Wallace Thornhill describes it, and I think it's such a great analogy. Um, when you use those workout ropes and you're waving them and you're creating the wave, it takes time for that transverse wave to move through the medium of our atmosphere. But when you tug on it, when you're playing tug of war or something, you tug on that rope, you feel that force instantaneously because it is one piece. It's all connected. So this is what the electric universe proponents propose, is that everything is connected longitudinally through this electrical tug, so to speak. There's nothing that isn't connected. And when you think about things like that, and you start looking at the world with those glasses on, things change instantly. And when you start to believe it, you start to see it more and more. And with theories like this are starting to prove it more and more scientifically, but intuitively. I don't think you need a theory like this. I think intuitively most people do know that it's not esoteric nonsense when we talk about being connected to nature and being connected to other people. It's a real physical thing, and this is again what proponents of the ether and what proponents of, I think, the electric universe are putting out there. It's definitely what I'm putting out there. But your thoughts, these actions, everything you do is taking place in a physical medium that is electrically connected. So really think about what the implications of that are, and I think it really is mind-blowing. But to finish off this video and kind of just leave with what essentially I think the electric universe versus mainstream science is really all about, or what at least I think it is about, or what I take from it. And it's a purposeless existence and cosmology versus a cosmology with inherent connectivity, grand purpose, and meaning. I think we've been spoon-fed a narrative which really takes away from the human experience, which really minimizes existence and life, and that is just cosmic crapshoot, so to speak, random selection and mutation, random collisions and chaos. I think that's a very bleak and distasteful way of looking at ourselves and humanity and just the Earth and the planet and the cosmos in general. And I personally believe that we are spoon-fed that narrative for a reason, to keep ourselves ignorant from the truth, because human beings are such powerful, incredible, amazing creatures and are nothing but just infinite awareness, having an experience on this physical plane. And that's my own personal belief. But the substructure of reality, the way I view this, only confirms that previous view that I just stated. It really does confirm it for me. And I think that there's a danger in letting the cat out of the bag, so to speak, because the system of compartmentalization and the system of control and fear that we live in rapidly wants us to forget who we are, forget where we came from, forget our history, forget the holistic nature of viewing the cosmology and life. So I think really the electric universe does a great job in exploding some of that truth onto the world and onto people who are willing to listen to it. It definitely reconnects things and makes a lot more sense. And I think it's one of the most important, if not the most important, scientific theory that is out there to date, and something that more and more people, I hope, check out and look into, because wow, it is really, really mind bending, really mind blowing. And I will make sure to fully load this video up with lots of notes and things that you can explore, because the electric universe theory to me has really changed the game in terms of scientific theories that are out there and are really giving people a proper cosmology, because wow, I really think it's beautiful. And the history, the human history that you uncover, and what happened to us in the past is really incredible to learn and to understand and come to terms with, because things just make a lot more sense. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this, my breakdown. Again, I'm no expert on this. This is just an area of interest to me, and I did the best I could in describing it. I'm sure I made some mistakes, and if anybody catches those mistakes, feel free to like leave it in the comments section. But I will do my best to post as much information as I can. But this is, at the end of the day, my opinion and my belief, and we all have to answer to our own truth at the end of the day, and I hope you are. And that's how I'm going to continue to live my life, and I hope this information was useful to somebody. So take care, everybody. This is In-Depth Perceptions, and I'm Nathan Riva. Thanks.